This screencast helps you with steps number 9 to the end of the project. And like I always remind you, these screencasts are for when you get stuck. They are not to be replacements for doing the work on your own. And because you'll do yourself a disservice if you use them this way, it's best to try your best, go through all the material, and if you submit your project and you have errors or you get stuck on a step, you can refer to this to see if that will help you with your questions. Okay, in step number 8, it asks you to remove design consulting from the data used to create this clustered column chart. And you'll notice here when I click on it, you do see design consulting here. It's the very little column here. It's relatively insignificantly impacting their sales at this point, so I think they opted just to take it out. So if you click on the chart to highlight it, and then you'll see up here in your data that the red outline indicates the categories, which are also used to populate the legend of this chart, and then the blue indicates the values for each month for each category. So what we're going to do is I'm going to move my mouse pointer just to the edge here of the data selection. Look, it becomes a double-sided arrow, and then I'm going to click and drag, and you'll notice that it immediately deselects design consulting, the category and its values for each month, and also removes it from the chart. Okay, the next step then is to select the values so that we can make our 3D pie chart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight A4 through A9, and then the next part of my selection is in a completely different column. It's not adjacent, and whenever you select data that's not right next to each other, or non-contiguous selection is how that's known, you hold down your Control key after your first selection has made, and then highlight the next part of your selection. So this is going to be H4 through H9. And then I'm going to go under the chart ribbon here, or excuse me, it's on the insert ribbon, it's the chart group. I'm going to click the 3D pie option on the next to the pie down arrow. And here we go. We've got a nice little start to our chart here. I'm going to click and drag and move that right here. Okay, so what it wants us to do next is to move this pie chart to its own sheet. It didn't allow us that option when we created it, so there's this option here, Move Chart, at the top, that's found under the Design tab in Chart Tools. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to call this chart, the new worksheet, Revenue Breakdown. Make sure you capitalize it. Know that SimNet will mark you down for any capitalization errors, punctuation, spelling. So be really careful to type things in exactly as they appear in the instructions. Click OK. Now I've got a new chart on its own worksheet, and then I'm just going to finish out this project by making some updates to this chart. First thing that it wants me to do is edit the chart title. So I'm going to click on Total, and Excel will take any sort of information inside your values and use that to populate your chart. So it saw that the category in that column H was listed as total, and that's what populates our legend for this chart, so it just assumed that total would be the name of your chart title. But we're going to click and highlight that, and we're going to change the title to Revenue by Category. And while it's still selected, we're going to change it to, click and drag and select it to change that font size to 32. And I'm just going to use this little quick menu that appears whenever you highlight text. And I'm going to click the down arrow and select 32. Doesn't indicate that we need to bold that, so we're just going to leave that alone now and click off to deselect it. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is see how the categories are divided up into pies, and every slice of the pie is small or large depending on how much of the value percent, that category contributed to the whole sum for that period of time. So you'll see that patio and furniture was contributed the most amount to the total value, that company's revenue. I just noticed over here I have a little typo. Let me take that out really quick here. I'm going to highlight that and backspace it. Sorry. So anyway, so because patio and furniture contributed the most or earned the most revenue for that company for that time period, it has the biggest slice of the pie, which makes sense. So it wants you to change the texture of that patio and furniture slice, probably to highlight it a bit more over the other slices, to what's called a textured pattern or a textured fill. So making sure that that little slice is selected, you'll notice I have a little circles highlighting the corners of the pie slice, indicating that just that slice is selected. And then I'm going to go over here under Format Data Points, and under the Fill option, which the fill is the little paint can here, you have something called a Picture or Texture Fill. I'm going to click on that. And then a little bit down below there's something called Texture here, and you can click the down arrow and get a variety of texture options. And what I do is use my mouse pointer to use the little, it'll show you what the titles are. You'll see these, it comes up in a little yellow box. Right now I'm on denim, and then here's woven matte. Looks like the fourth one from the top left. Okay, and so now we've got our woven matte texture fill, and then it wants us to add the data labels to be in the center. And before we do that, I just noticed I skipped step number 11, where we were supposed to change the font size of the legend to 12. So a nice way to select the whole legend at once is to just kind of click to the left of the legend. And then I'm just going to go up onto the home ribbon and change that font size to 12. Okay, there, that's a little bit easier to read. Now I'm going to move on to step 13, and I'm going to add the data labels to the center of each slice. So we're going to go under the Design tab, Add Chart Elements, Data Labels, and then Center, making sure that we have selected the inner portion of our chart here. See how I've got this inside rectangle indicating that the whole pie chart, right, this portion of the pie chart is selected, so I can add those data labels at once to each of the slices. And then we need to make the text just a little bit easier to read and also change the formatting a bit, the value formatting. So I'm going to click on one, and that selects all of the little data labels. And over here you've got the Format Data Label task pane. We're going to go under Text Options. Let's see, Label. Let's try Label. Okay, here we go. Label Options. And then under Label Options, there's something called the Value. You want to click on Value and change that to Value, and then you want to scroll down here to Number, and we're going to change that to, instead of General Category, we're going to change that to Accounting. And then we're going to take the decimal place down to 0. And hit Enter. And now we've got whole values here with the $sign now that we've changed that to Accounting. And then while we've had it still selected, let's go again to the home ribbon, and we're going to change that font size to 14. And then we're going to also bold it. Okay, once we've done all that, you've basically completed this project. Go ahead and deselect the chart, and then go back onto this Q2 and Q3 worksheet, and then just do a save, and then you go ahead and you can now submit your project into SimNet for grading.